The playoff field is set. We had Braves-Mets doubleheader today. We have everything set. We know who's playing where. We know who's not in. Shout out Diamondbacks. Sorry about your luck. Let's start in the American League. 3 versus 6. We have the Houston Astros, who will be hosting the red-hot Detroit Tigers. This is a team that was like 9 games under 500 in the middle of June. Like, they were kind of written off. No one really thought they were going to make a playoff run, and here they are, probably the hottest team in baseball. And the Astros, on the flip side, you have a team that has been to the playoffs plenty of times. They have all the experience in the world. Seth, Tigers, Astros. Who comes out on top?
I think this is going to go for every single matchup. What matters in the postseason? What matters in the postseason?
What does matter in the postseason? Because I don't know if we're going to agree on what matters in the postseason.
I would say there are 2 things. There are 2 things that matter in the postseason. First is pitching. You can't win without pitching.
Okay.
And I think Tarek Skubal, him winning the Triple Crown is a testament to just their pitching staff. But one pitcher doesn't necessarily make the pitching staff.
Mm-hmm.
They've had a few solid starters all year, and their bullpen has really been what's kind of held them up through this back part of the season, propelling them into the playoffs. And if you look at the Houston pitching rotation from the beginning of the year till now, it's a completely different rotation. You're looking at who fell out, right? Christian Javier fell out. The only reason the Astros win this series is if they continue to bang on trash cans. I hate the Astros.
Oh my gosh.
I hate the Astros. Cheaters from
This isn't the History Channel, Seth. That was 7 years ago. What are we doing here?
Okay. What really matters, I think, in this situation is momentum and pitching, and Detroit has that. They have a solid young core. We've seen that with our Cincinnati Reds. Unfortunately,
tough.
We're going to touch on that later, and also give it to Pete Rose.
Rest in peace.
Yeah. But I think with their young core, they have Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson. Their offense is picking up at the right time, and comparing that to last year with the Diamondbacks, I think they could make a deep run, and they're kind of a threat. They're a threat, and I think the Astros, with the first-year manager, he didn't even know how to utilize Josh Hader at the beginning of the season. He'd put him in as a two-inning reliever, and Josh Hader give up grand slams. I think that happened 2 or 3 times this season. And I know postseason is different, but I think with the edge of momentum and pitching, I think Detroit has the edge there.
That's fair with the Astros. I'll give you the credit. Young manager. I think the Astros beat the Tigers. And I love the story of the Tigers. People counted them out. I took a flyer on them to win the division. Obviously, they didn't end up doing that. But you're right. They're a young, exciting team. Here's the problem I have. We saw a similar situation with the Orioles last year. You have a young team. I think they got by last year too, and I think they got swept in the DS. They were a team that everybody was excited about. You have Rutschman, you have Henderson, Rookie of the Year, and they couldn't pull it out. And with the Tigers, they are the hottest team coming into the playoffs, right? They were counted out. They didn't have, they didn't look good at the beginning of the year. They turned it around. Ironically enough, the pitching got better once they got rid of Jack Flaherty, which if you would have said that in July or whatever, I don't think anybody would have believed you. We think Detroit is this hottest team. Detroit's 20-10 in their last 30. Houston's 18-12. So Houston's coming into this with some momentum too. I think the experience might be the difference here for Houston. Philosophical question. Thinking about the playoffs, and you're trying to see who's going to win a series, who's going to win the World Series, who's going to win the league, American League or National League. What's more important in your mind, starting pitching or relief pitching? I'm not trying to make a point here, just a philosophical question.
Realistically, I think relief pitching gets it done. It's funny because that was kind of the flipped script of last year with the Texas Rangers. They had no bullpen, and somehow in October they just turned the entire scheme of pitching on its head, and they were like, I think we're gonna do this.
Yeah.
And they did. I can understand Houston having Presley, Abreu, and Hader at the back of their bullpen, But at the same time, Detroit relief pitching, although they don't have the what can you say, the resume of Presley, Hader, and Abreu, even though their resume isn't built up as much, they've been as hot as any other team holding that down. I think if we even look at Foley for the Tigers, he's been kind of like set in stone, their main setup guy throughout the whole season, and you can see that in his holds. I mean, I don't know how many blown saves or blown holds he has, but he is a huge key piece. And it's not just that. The entire back half of their bullpen is going to, if they get to the 6th inning, they're kind of locking it down. And I don't think you can say that about the Houston Astros. Presley, having moved out of the closer role, hasn't really shown a lot in the 8th inning, and he kind of picked it up in the back half. Abreu has kind of been wishy-washy all season. He's been on the better side of wishy-washy, but with those two pieces going into Hader sometimes comes in the 8th inning into a mess. And Hader's not more than a 1-inning guy. So what are you going to do with those extra 3 outs, you know? So I still even think the relief pitching is more important.
It's so bad. I know we both play MLB The Show, and a lot of these guys, like I'm reading the names or I'm going through this year's stats, and I will still think, like I hear Presley, and I just think of the 92 rated diamond card I had of him 3 years ago. And I'm like, oh yeah, he's got to be a good pitcher. Like, oh, he's got to still be good, even though I'm going from a fake video game from years ago. What this comes down to for me, and my pick to win this series, Houston, this might be, we might approach this stat differently. I can't remember how we did in the preview show, but Houston's 18-27 in 1-run games. And in my mind, that just means something has to give. Like, if you're losing 1-run games, I think Evan made a point, like to a point that's managing, that's coaching. You can lose 1-run games because you make mistakes. But the data guy in me wants to say that I think you're going to win 50% of your 1-run games. So if you have a team that's 18-27 this year, there's just bound to be some regression there. Do you think opposite of that? Because playing at a high level, like, I understand there are decisions that are you blow saves, you make bad decisions that cost you. Got to win those 1-run games, but I just think something's got to give there.
I think you're looking at it too indefinitely. I think there are 2 columns that matter in baseball, and those are wins and losses. It could be losing by 10, it could be losing by 1. There are no ties in baseball, and it doesn't. No ties. I understand in extra innings there is no Manfred Man in extra innings in October, so that may play a role. But again, I think the Tigers still have the edge there because they have the extra bullpen arm. It's not just those back 3 solid guys.
Okay, that's fair enough. I'm going Astros. It sounds like you're going Tigers.
Yep, Tigers. Tigers to make a deep run.
All right, I got that written down. Let's go to the other wild card game. In my opinion, the more fun one. You have like more of the superstar talk. Royals, obviously, with Bobby Witt Jr., ends up being the hit leader this season. Then you have the Baltimore Orioles, who have, we could go laundry list: Rutschman, Henderson, Holiday. And this is one of the representatives from your division, the AL East, the one you said that was the toughest division in all of baseball.
I still hold true to that.
We'll talk about that in talking points. I still think you're wrong, but who you got winning this matchup? Royals, Orioles.
Oh man, this is a great question.
We talked in the AL East preview, like we thought the Orioles were going to be like 100 win. At least I thought so. I think we both had them to win the division, and now they're in a wild card spot, 4 seed.
Here's where, again, in the last wild card spot, we kind of talked about what matters, and that is pitching and momentum. And I think even though these teams are on a horrible backslide, I mean, the Royals going into the last 2 weeks of the season lost like 8 in a row. That's going to be hard to come back from. I think their leadership of Salvador Perez may increase that a little bit, but you're also talking about a 100-loss season last year. There are just a lot of different components that we're looking at for that team in particular. So because of that and the momentum that they had coming in, the Orioles weren't much better. They did take 2 out of 3 from my Yankees, but that didn't matter.
Yeah, it really didn't. That was a situation where I think the Orioles had to win out and the Yankees had to lose out to win the division, and it didn't end up mattering. But with this matchup, we saw, and I think we even touched on this again on the AL East preview show, was that the Orioles come in last year being such a young team and just flop in the playoffs. And now you kind of want to give them the benefit of the doubt. It's like they've been here once. These young guys kind of know what they're getting now. There's a glaring stat here that just keeps poking out at my face for the Royals, and I can't get over it. And they were one of the unluckiest teams last year. And when I say unluckiest, based on their score differential, they should have won 5 more games than they actually did. And again, that's me kind of saying their win-loss might not exactly reflect the talent that this team has. The Orioles pitching is also decimated. They have Corbin Burns at number 1. And then you go from there, like Grayson Rodriguez is out. There's a lot of guys that, started on this pitching staff that aren't there anymore because of injury. I like the Royals here, and it kind of scares me because you think of the Orioles and you have those guys that can, be difference makers. Do they have the experience yet? That's kind of the question that it boils down to for me. Offenses overall are pretty even. I think the Royals have better starting pitching. Oddly enough, I think the Royals' bullpen's a little bit better. We've seen from the Royals, MacArthur and Schreiber, they've shown flashes of decency, but overall, like, game comes down, 9th inning, bases are loaded, you got to get a strikeout or something. Are you trusting those guys? I'm not, but I give a slight edge to the Royals. Very slight, very, very tiny. What about you?
I think that with these teams, it is kind of neck and neck, but I'm going to play the momentum card again. I think when we look at the Orioles recently, over a span of 162 games, these two are somewhat comparable offense-wise. But if we look at the last month, I think the Orioles have the slight edge, and because of that, you can't win baseball games without scoring. And I think that's the reason that the Royals have lost games. And coming into October, I was actually listening to another podcast talking baseball where they really went into that kind of mindset of if home runs carry you through the whole season with the Orioles or the Yankees or even Cleveland this year, if those home runs don't keep coming in October, then where is your offense coming from? And I think the Orioles will have the slight edge offensively, and I think that's where the decision will be made based on offense entirely, because I think, like you said, the Orioles starting pitching is kind of just gone, especially with how Craig Kimbrell kind of turned out there in the end.
Yeah.
He's looking for a new job. So
yeah.
I hear Kroger's hiring.
Yeah, Kroger, McDonald's, fries in the bag, bro. Fries in the bag.
That's
so
right.
I'm going Royals. Who are you going with? Confirm.
I'm going with the Orioles.
Orioles. All right.
We're just here disagreeing is what it comes down to.
There we go. And we might have more coming because you made a point about the Yankees that I want to hit when we make our wild card picks, or not wild card, our World Series picks at the very end. You're not going to like what I have to say. But we'll hop over to the National League. Today we had the doubleheader between the Braves and the Mets that helped us decide who is going to be playing what seed, who's going to be playing where. Diamondbacks smell ya, which I think is ultimately best for the product. The Diamondbacks didn't impress me a lot. You want to talk about bad pitching? They are the kings of bad pitching. How they were even in contention for the playoffs is surprising. We will start Brewers, Mets. Brewers the 3 seed, Mets the 6 seed. Mets win the first game today, lose the second one. Seth, what do you got?
How about that first game?
Oh my gosh, it was a classic. And I was doing stuff at work. I had it on the background. I just look up and the Francisco Lindor home run. Anybody that got to see that, when he hit the ball, he kind of like gave a look that it wasn't. He didn't think it was out. But then when the camera goes and you're like, that's a home run. They're panning like that's a home run. Yeah. Awesome game. Awesome first game.
Schwellenbach 7 innings scoreless, and the Mets just turn it on.
That's so tough.
I'm so happy for Mets fans. Happy for Mets fans. But back to the Diamondbacks. How about that Jordan Montgomery signing? What a guy.
Oh my gosh. I've never seen a guy make such a big fuss and hold out just to absolutely stink. He was awful.
what was his ERA? Like, wasn't it like above 6 or just
Oh,
below?
it
was
had to
bad.
have been. That's
It
one
was
of those
bad.
where it's like you see him listed as a probable, and you're like first 5 over, or opposite team first 5. That's like, yeah, it was really bad, and he stood out for a while, like past spring training, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
really bad.
Anyway, Mets Brewers. I think this one's kind of in the bag. Brewers are taking this
Oh, I
one.
love the Brewers, Seth. I
It's
love them.
it's not. I don't even think it'll be close. Unfortunately, I think the Mets have had trouble with the Brewers all year long. The Brewers new manager came in this year, and I think this is kind of a smack in the face to the Cubs. I think it's like,
It
sure,
is.
sure, you want to take our guy that is claiming all of our wins. We'll do it by ourselves. We'll do it by ourselves. And I think we're going to see this in the wild card round, maybe the DS even. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this Brewers team, I was looking specifically for the wild card round. You're going a max 3 games. I don't like how the rotation looks towards the end. I've never bought in on Savale. And then Montes, he's had some decent showings as a Brewer, but his last one was absolutely off. Yeah, Reds. You're wearing both of his previous teams, hoodie and hat.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely awful stuff with him from the Reds. But the Brewers, there's a lot of things to like about this Brewers team. They have the second best record among playoff teams against teams over 500, 52-41 in the regular season. 74% save rate, which was the second best. Seth, that's with them missing their closer for like half the season. So there's a lot of positive things here. They're very aggressive on the bases, which is something, if you're in the playoffs and you need to create chaos, Milwaukee is a team that I think is going to do that. And I think maybe the Phillies are up there as well, but everybody else, they are like 40, 50 stolen bases below the Brewers and the Phillies. I love the Brewers here. And I was a big believer in the Mets coming into the year. I thought they could possibly win the division. I thought they were going to make the playoffs. It came down to the wire, probably a little bit closer than I liked, but I think we agree on this one. The Brewers are advancing.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be close, unfortunately. Good for the Mets for being here.
Brewers were really underrated coming into the season. I remember their win total was mid 70s, low 70s, and I was like, what are we doing here? They lost Corbin Burns, but that was really all that I could think of off the top of my head. And 3 seed, they might make a deep run. But with that being said, we'll go over to the other National League game, possibly the most fun National League wildcard series, Padres-Braves. The Braves solidify their spot in the playoffs with their win today. Padres, another hot team, another fun team that I don't know. Coming into the year, they were expected to be good. They were a team last year that lost a lot of one-run games, and we saw some regression back to the mean there, and they find themselves with the 4 seed. Almost kind of gave the Dodgers a run for the National League West. Seth, can the Braves pull it off? It sounds weird saying that the Braves are going to be an underdog in this series.
What do they call the postseason? They call it the dance. They call the postseason the dance in baseball.
The dance.
Unfortunately, the Mets and Braves were the last 2 girls to find a date, and they came together, and they're going to be the girls sitting on the side while the rest of us are dancing.
No.
And they're comparable. They're comparable. It's not even going to be close. The Padres have the 4 seed, and it's just because they didn't win the division because the Dodgers were so hot and spent over $1 billion in the offseason.
A small country's GDP and salary and payroll. A Haitian GDP and payroll.
But their bullpen, man. Their bullpen. You want to talk about, I mean, I was glazing the Tigers a little bit. I mean, maybe a little too much. But if you want to talk about a glazed bullpen, this Padres bullpen is like a fresh, hot Krispy Kreme donut, man. They are so good front to back, and their acquisition of Tanner Scott at the trade deadline just made it better. The Padres are going to be hard to beat. They're going to be very, very hard to beat.
Starting lineup, or not starting lineup, but pitching rotation too. I know I gave Michael King some crap between you and I at the beginning of the year. He's turned out to be great. Dylan Cease was a guy, I think a lot of people said, going from guaranteed rate to Petco, some of his numbers would be elevated. He's been great. And what I like about this team as well is their offense is a mix of getting on base and power. So you have guys at the top like Arias, who gave Bobby Witt Jr. a run for the hit title. And then you got guys like Profar, Machado, Jackson Merrill, who you could try and make a case for Rookie of the Year there. I think Skeens probably has that locked up, but you could make a case for Merrill. There are a lot of things to be excited about the Padres. I'm going to give you a dark horse here. Dark horse player that's going to be like a I can't like a David
Jeremy
Eckstein
Pena?
maybe.
A Jeremy Pena when he came up rookie year.
Yeah, or like I'm thinking David Eckstein 2006. Donovan Solano. If the Padres end up making a run, he has been great. He's a platoon guy, so he doesn't play every day. He was great with the Reds before we let him go. He could have a great showing in the playoffs if people start talking about him. I am taking the Padres to move on. My one concern with the Braves, though, where they could give us some trouble, their offense, even with people gone, there's a lot of deep metrics here that would say the Braves are hitting the ball hard, and it's just a matter of things falling, and they can pour it on whenever they want to. That's my one concern about the Braves, but I am taking the Padres to move on, and it sounds like you are as well.
Yep.
Padres can make it deeper. I love it. I love this Padres team in the preseason. Okay, through the wild card round, let's go to some talking points. The biggest one I want to touch on is about the team that is on your head right now. David Bell, let go from his position five games before the end of the season. It was the last home game. Nick Kroll, the GM of baseball operations at the Reds, said that they let him go before the end of the season because they wanted to pursue some other candidates before it got too late, which more than fair, right? And you hear the players talk about David Bell. It's very obvious that he was a player's manager first. You never really saw him ream guys out on the field, which I personally think is a good thing. But the Reds were a sloppy team, and they wasted a lot of time with a lot of talent. You wasted a year and a half with Ellie, 2 full years of Steer, and now it kind of feels like the clock is running out on these rookie contracts, and you got to get someone in to capitalize on the talent. All things that Nick Kroll's kind of pointed to. So, Bell's fired. I liked Bell. Who's available? Who's the next option for you, Seth?
Well, if you've been paying attention to any baseball media, which we do,
of course,
I don't know if you've seen the mutual agreement with the Marlins.
That's interesting you say that.
They also separated ways over there in Miami.
So are you drawing some lines there?
I mean, I think he's a good option number one. Grady Sizemore got a little bit of some love down on the south side of Chicago.
Yeah. Skip Schumacher's the only guy, in my opinion. You got to go out and get Skip. A lot of people are going to say, like, this past year it wasn't great, but once the Marlins traded away Luis Arias, we knew the season was like the Marlins were not trying to compete for anything. And the year before, we saw the Marlins were in playoff talks up until mid-September for the wild card. They were winning 1-run games like it was nobody's business, and I think a lot of that has to do with Skip Schumacher. I would love to see him in red. Grady Sizemore, small sample size. I don't know how I feel about that. Barbershop talk. I heard Aaron Boone. I heard Aaron Boone, Seth. Does that worry you at all?
No.
Reds legend.
There's no way that Aaron Boone leaves New York. There's just not a chance. He's a player's manager, but the difference between him and David Bell is the 2 columns that matter. Last season, we had possibly the worst setup in all time. We didn't have a left fielder or third baseman. We were stringing along Josh Donaldson at the age of 72. And we had no true left fielder. Oswaldo Cabrera this year. Well, we'll get into the Yankees, but the Yankees are going to hold on to Aaron Boone. I know Aaron Boone's a Cincinnati guy, but at his heart, he's a Yankees guy. He's on a podcast talking Yanks every week with the fans for Yankee Nation, and I just don't see it even being possible. Not to mention he just signed a contract. So
yeah, it's tough. The talking Yanks, not a Yankees fan, but by far one. I love seeing clips of that because they let Boone hear it. Like, this is not a PR stunt. Just come on and say some nice things. Awesome show. Love watching that. I'm going Schumacher for the Reds manager position. I will be more than happy with that. You've seen him get fired up. I will say, if we do get Boone in the off chance, we would not see a drop in ejections. The ejections would stay exactly the same. I wanted to touch on 2 more points. First one, Ohtani, 50-50 season, 50-plus season. Does he need to do anything else to solidify with you that he is the best player the baseball's ever seen? Because we had a talk. I remember vividly sitting at Moe's 2 years ago talking about the MVP conversation, and you were saying that it needs to be judged, and I was saying, no. Ohtani, if he's pitching and he's hitting the way he's doing that, he is the MVP until he retires. He can be average on both sides, and he's MVP until he retires.
So after this offensive season that Shohei Ohtani has had, there have been rumors that he's not going to pitch anymore. There have been those rumors because he's literally put up one of the best offensive seasons in history, not to mention a top 4 baseball game in history with 3 home runs, 10 RBIs. I mean, like, it has been in talks to where if he does come back in a pitching role that they could see him being a back end bullpen guy to where he can hit continuously, because with the Dodgers, they've had a decent amount of offense. With Mookie Betts being down all season, they needed a lot of run support because they didn't have a top of the lineup guy, and they just had Shohei Ohtani and Freddie Freeman. So with Ohtani putting on the clinic that he did, there have been rumors that he's not going to pitch anymore. I don't think that's the case because they did sign him for basically a lot. I mean, I can't even remember. What was it, like $800 million?
Yeah. So what would be the thought process there? If he pitches, he can still hit, can he?
Yes, but the conspiracy thought behind that is he's always been a good hitter. He's always mashed with the Angels, but at the same time, like, pitching does a lot of wear and tear on your body. Mm-hmm. So because of that, they want to keep him healthy to the utmost extent so he can continue to hit, because it showed how valuable his hitting was and how crazy that was this season.
That's interesting you bring that up. I think they paid him too much to not give it a try, or not have him go out and pitch and then hit as well. But I mean, he's going to be a DH and win the MVP. And I see people on social media like, oh, Lindor. Like, you can't even make you can't make a comparison to what Ohtani's done this year. He's such a unicorn. And even if he goes out there and pitches and has an average, he doesn't have to have a Chris Sale year. He doesn't have to have a Tariq Skubal year. He can have an average year, and he's still just going to be one of the top guys in baseball. You didn't answer my question. Does he need to do anything else? Has he already done it?
He's got to continue to do it. He's got to continue to do it, because if he just hits, then I think his speed power combo is almost untouched. I think Aaron Judge is a better power hitter, but at the same time,
short porch, but yeah,
he's not. Aaron Judge isn't getting those stolen bases, but he's also not playing the field. So it just depends what the rest of his career looks like. I would say he's a 97% lock in right now for the Hall of Fame. Either way, he's going to be in Cooperstown because of the amazing strides he's made. But whether or not he has a plaque is the question. And if he does this for 5 more years, there's not a doubt in my mind. Even if he does it for 2 more years, he still may sneak into the Hall of Fame.
I'm going to need a fact check on this afterwards because I don't want to spread misinformation here. But I saw somewhere that the most steals he ever had in a season in the Japanese league is like 7. So I don't know what has changed between then and now. Maybe the bigger bases, I don't know. But it has.
He didn't pitch this year, Dylan. That is what it is. The amount of stress and fatigue that you get in your legs, even if you get on base, you're conserving energy because you have to build up to pitch that 6th day. Every 6 days you're pitching.
Okay, you know what? I'm live. I'm getting fact checker on this. How many stolen bases did he have when he was with Los Angeles? He wasn't not stealing bases, I didn't think. So I'm looking here. You're right. It's not an astronomical amount. But last year, 2021, he had 26. 2022 only had 11. So I guess that's fair. Maybe 2020 he had 7 and shortened season. So, okay, that's fair. I can concede that. But I thought that was wild. It's like, obviously, I guess now if you're pitching, or you're not pitching, you're able to unleash that speed, and it has the wear and tear in your body. That's why we have a coach on the show. The things I don't know, right? So we went through the wild card matchups. There are 4 teams we haven't talked about yet. I want to give you the opportunity to talk about the Yankees first because that's your team. Then give me your World Series pick.
Oh, wow.
Give me the Yankees talk. The home run heavy Yankees. Is there any concern, like, if you have to go anywhere except for New York and win a game, and like you look at Aaron Judge's numbers, right? 58 home runs, am I correct?
Yes.
If he played every game at Kauffman, he has 47. Any concerns about having to go to Kansas City and, oh my gosh, all these balls that were home runs at Yankee Stadium, they're not home runs at Kauffman anymore?
Here's the bigger issue that we're walking into. 2 weeks ago, we had an entirely healthy roster. Within these last 2 weeks of the season, we had 3 guys in our potential playoff roster get hurt. Nestor Cortez, he's out of the rotation. We did have a 6-man rotation coming in. So it sucks, but what sucks about that is we lose a lefty. I don't want to say it has anything to do with his talent or ability compared to other pitchers. It's just the southpaw that we need coming into the postseason. We lost one of those. Jake Cousins was a potential back of the bullpen guy, one of our back 4 guys by committee, because Clay Holmes, how about that guy?
Yeah, I made a graphic for him. It's not safe for work. I can't put it here, but not great.
Yeah, he has the most blown saves in Yankees history. I mean, he was coming in the 7th inning and blowing saves. How does that happen? But
oh, brother.
Jake Cousins is out, and Rizzo right now, he's kind of teeter-tottering. He's on – we aren't unsure if he's going to make the postseason roster. He broke 2 bones in his hand, and Aaron Boone in his press conference said it's just, can he handle the pain? Because there's nothing hindering him necessarily. Like, it can't cause any further damage. Mm-hmm. It's like, is he going to be able to handle the pain scooping, because it is his glove hand, and is he going to be able to swing the bat? If he can, then we're basically out a batter. There have been these last 2 games of the regular season. Once we clinch the East, this last series against Pittsburgh, Grisham's gotten run, Verdugo's gotten run, and Dominguez has gotten run in the outfield. Judge has been DHing not because Soto can't play. I mean, these games necessarily didn't mean anything. Mm-hmm. What it meant was, going into these last 3 games, who are we going to see in the postseason? Because Dominguez has shown in left field that his defense is a little sketchy, while Verdugo is a gold glover out there. And the offense on the flip side, so one plays defense, one plays offense, and we could be seeing a late inning defensive substitution with Verdugo. At first base, who's going to play first base? Is Rizzo going to be willing? When you get a picture of MLB tough guy, you may not think Anthony Rizzo, but he stands on the plate for a reason. He's the hit by pitch guy. He's willing to do it. He's a tough teammate. And so is he going to be toughing it out for this postseason, or are we going to see the rookie Ben Rice that hit 3 home runs in a game but ended up hitting 160 during his time up in the show? Or are we going to see Oswaldo Cabrera, who it seems like he's getting a hit every time he starts a game? So who are we going to see at first base? Those are some big questions that we have coming in. But our rotation is 5 men deep, and our weakest person is probably Marcus Stroman. And yeah. Marcus Stroman came into this season, he's a middle of the rotation guy. He's a decent pitcher, but he's not the strikeout guy that we're going to need seeing in the postseason. He even got some bullpen run and got a save this season. Mm-hmm. So what are we looking at in terms of the Yankees? It all just depends on what can our 8, 9, and 1. Those batters in our lineup are going to determine how the Yankees postseason goes, because we have a Lou Gehrig, Babe Ruth 2-3 punch. So It just all depends. Yeah, that 2-3 punch is going to be hard to deal with if you have to face the Yankees. I don't want to state the obvious there. Now, even in football, when we do the football show, I prescribe to the belief that no one knows your team better than you. So I'm going to ask you this question. I don't know his stats off the top of my head. Let's say you lost, Anthony Rizzo can't play first base. Offensively, is that going to be that big of a loss? It seems like in my mind he's fallen off since last May or something. He had a concussion and he kept playing, and it just seems like he wasn't the same since then. Am I wrong? It's funny because Rizzo was on the 60-day IL for the majority of the season. He came in, he had maybe 1 or 2 good weeks, mediocre weeks, and then he fell off hard and got hurt, and then he showed up at the end of the season, and I don't know the exact statistics, but he's been hitting. in the seventh spot for the Yankees when he was back, and he was doing well. Like, he was getting RBI chances, he was pulling through. I mean, we have depth to our lineup. There's a question mark with left field, Alex Verdugo, with how he's been hitting. Dominguez, the rookie, like, what is he going to do in October? He doesn't have the experience. In center field, we have Judge and Soto and Wright. We're good there. Volpe has been off and on all season. It seems like his stolen bases are – last year was his rookie year, but it seems like his stolen base numbers are down, even though we've only seen 1 year. Gleyber Torres has been decent offensively, but his defense is a mess. First base is a question mark, and we got Jazz at third and Austin Wells behind the dish. So Austin Wells is another one of those guys. He could go 0 for 5, or he could go 3 for 5 with a home run. Like, we never, depending on the game, we don't know exactly what it's going to look like behind the plate. But from front to back, Torres has been hot hitting in the leadoff. Soto, Judge have been hot all season. Wells is kind of one of those hot and cold guys. And then hitting fifth is usually Giancarlo Stanton. And Stanton, for being 86 years old, has been playing pretty well. He's got the knees of a guy the age of Moses, and he's playing somewhat decent. And I mean, if you saw the Orioles series in that last game, he's the reason we won the game. The bases clearing double, and then he had another RBI later in the game. I can't remember if it was a home run or not, but he's the reason we ended up clinching. So Giancarlo Stanton hitting fifth. Jazz Chisholm is kind of the restart of the order in the 6 hole. Rizzo was hitting seventh, Volpe, and then who in the ninth? Who's playing left field? Mm-hmm. So it just kind of all depended on the back end of the lineup, wrapping it around. Jazz Chisholm came in hot. Great pickup for the Yankees. He's still a little throw happy over there at third base, and he likes to short hop those. So the biggest question is who's going to be able to pick those Jazz Chisholm throws at first base. That is the biggest question mark, because we aren't taking Jazz Chisholm out of the lineup. He's still getting stolen bases. He's hitting home runs. He's getting on base. And the biggest thing that impressed me with Jazz Chisholm Jr. was his awareness of team baseball. Mm-hmm. If there's a guy on second base with nobody out, if he got sacrifices like a sac fly or a sac bunt for every time he rolled over to the right side to move the runner over, his batting average would at least be 50 points higher, because I swear he does that at least once a game. It's crazy to see his team baseball mentality. He's been with the Marlins, and now he's a part of a playoff program for the first time, and it's been really impressive to see how as Jazz Chisholm made an impact on this team, not just with his power, but his ability to play team baseball and fill a role at third base that he's never played before. So I think front to back, our lineup is fairly good, but it's just those question marks that we have in the middle of the lineup, because Jazz Chisholm is like the second leadoff guy in the middle of the order, which is kind of needed because he can get on first with a dribbler, a slow roller in the infield, and then steal second base. So the Yankees as a whole, the question mark still remains the bullpen. It always has. We picked up Mark Leiter Jr. at the trade deadline, and he came from the Cubs. I've mentioned the Cubs. They stink. So I'm not a Central hater. I'm not.
It seems like you are, but well, you're a Reds fan, so you can't be. You can't be. Listen, the Yankees are a very good team. I think they're the second favorite to win the World Series. They do a lot of things that I like. They went 50-31 this year on the road. They had the best record in the MLB against teams over 500, 55-38. The hump I can't get over for this Yankees team, and I don't have them to win the World Series. They rely so much on the home run. And let's say I had the Royals beating the Orioles in the wild card round. Now, I will say I do think the Yankees have the easier draw out of either them or Cleveland. I would rather play one of these teams, Baltimore or Kansas City, rather than Houston or Detroit, in my opinion. But let's say they have to play a few games at Kauffman. That's not a very hitter-friendly field, and you eliminate a few of those home runs throughout the season for the Yankees. It worries me a little bit. With that being said, I could see them making the World Series. ALCS is in play. I can't quite get there to say that they're going to win the World Series. but I will go ahead and roll right into my World Series pick. It's a bit of an underdog. It's a lot of an underdog. I'm not taking the Dodgers. I don't trust the Dodgers starting rotation. You look at who they have. They have Yamamoto, they have Flaherty, and then from there you're going Landon Knack, you're going Walker Buehler. Glasnow's not pitching. I don't know if Kershaw's going to be back. He was on the 15-day IL, I think, 5 days ago. So I don't know if he's going to be back in time. I can't get in on the Dodgers. The Phillies they're kind of meh in my mind. If you ever get into a position with the Phillies where you have Taijuan Walker taking the mound in a meaningful start, you're in some serious trouble. And I just can't get in on that. The team I'm picking, I think the Padres do it. And it doesn't pain me to say, but they are a team that I think they're the most complete. They have the batting for average. They have the batting for power. Good relief pitching. They have good starting. Like, they have everything that it takes. I would love to play the Dodgers in the NLCS. If I'm one of these wild card teams, I'm hoping I get to play the Dodgers in the NLCS because we saw it last year. We saw the Dodgers get this break. They get this break until the DS, and they just didn't look like the same team they looked like in the regular season. The starting pitching is decimated, and let's say, who are they going to run into in the NLCS? One of these three teams, let's say the Mets upset and they end up there. Yeah, I trust the Padres. Phillies, I'm not completely bought in on. Brewers are oddly enough the team that could give them fits if they see them in the NLCS. And then from there, I'm pretty confident in the Padres to take down these teams I'm looking at in the American League. I think the Padres are 11-1, 12-1 to win the World Series. That's my pick.
Good pick. That's a really good pick. I think you know where my pick is.
Okay, let's say you can't pick the Yankees.
I think you know where my pick is. But I'd have to say you're wrong.
Oh, me?
Yeah, what you think is going to be wrong. Because what's crazy is I'm taking that plane with you to San Diego, and they're going to take home the dance. I think San Diego, like I said, my World Series pick, I've been saying it since as soon as they traded for Tanner Scott. I said Yankees, Padres, World Series, Padres in 6.
So you got the Yankees coming out of the American League.
I do.
I think I'm going Padres Guardians.
As long as they play the Yankees in the CS, that's okay.
Yeah, that's fair. We can go to that game, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. There's a lot of things, and I have a clip. I was doing some research on the AL East preview we did, and we talked about the division. I said the Padres were a candidate to win the World Series, and that's where we got the Padres. That's what you did, Seth.
I did say that.
The Padres.
I did say that.
And here we are. They're going to win the World Series. They have everything. Like, everything that I could ask for from a team to win the World Series. I love the Padres here. I've been drinking the San Diego Kool-Aid. Are there any other teams you want to touch on? Anything you want to say about the Dodgers, Phillies? We touched on the Yankees, Guardians, teams we haven't talked about.
I think the Yankees win the DS, no problem. When they get to the CS, if they run into Houston, I think Detroit may meet us in the CS. And if that happens,
there's no shot. There's absolutely
I think Detroit takes it home. I think Detroit goes to the World Series if they meet us in the CS, because the Yankees can't hit left-handed pitching. That's it. If we run into a group of lefties, it was a good season, boys. That's what it comes into. And having a triple crown left-hander, that's scary. That's like you're playing a best of 6 series because you're a best of 5 series because you're already out.
That's great. I think maybe that's the biggest difference we have from this show is I don't believe in the Tigers one bit, and you seem to believe in them a lot. So we'll see. They actually have, I think they have the first game tomorrow, which is today if you're watching. I think they play at 2:20. So any slander about the Dodgers, Phillies?
Not
Dodgers
really.
Dodgers are so overrated. They're the favorite to win it all. They have the fancy names. The first 3 bats in the lineup are great, but that pitching, man. Tough.
Pitching momentum and experience. That is the winning potion right there. And the Dodgers are so hurt pitching, it's just gonna kill them. And I don't want to say they've they don't have momentum, but they've kind of hit the brakes at the end of the season. I mean, they had the division on lock and they were just focused on getting people healthy. And it's just the Padres are a force to be reckoned with, man. Go
I love it.
Padres. Go Padres. If they win, I'll buy a Padres hat.